Hello, this is Dan Sanderson on behalf of Woodcrafters again. I went over the list on Dropbox last night of the accounting functions, and it reminded me of a couple of things that I'd like to see included. Um, they may be loosely tied to accounting. I think it could be argued either way, honestly. If they're not tied to accounting, then just go ahead and skip them. But for me, purchasing, receiving, inventory valuation, all of that stuff helps with accounting. So the first thing that I'm going to go over is on the materials to buy grid. It's a little difficult right now. You cannot see the preferred vendor. So we sort by preferred vendor because I want to be able to just add these to existing work orders. I've even tried bringing this down, expanding the column, and then pulling it back up. And again, it just goes to this. I cannot see the preferred vendor. So that's kind of a problem right now. I guess maybe if I try to do this, nah, and it just doesn't work. So I need to be able to see who the preferred vendor is. The second part of this is I can't add materials to an existing purchase order. That seems pretty important to me as part of purchasing. When I have an existing purchase order, we typically start by ordering materials for a project and then just toss our stock materials onto that. I would imagine that's pretty typical. I need to be able to add to an existing purchase order. I'm going to go ahead and cross that off my list. The next thing would be the receiving. So when it comes to receiving, there's a little bit of a difficulty right now. If I go into when I go into receive materials, I'm going to use Charter as an example. It's tied to a project, which is fantastic, and I think that's probably the way that it should be, is just tied to a project. But right now, I receive to a work order. I don't know what work order this is associated with, and honestly, it's probably associated to multiple work orders. So I guess I don't know why we would be receiving to a work order instead of just receiving to a project. Maybe that's the way it has to be done, but I'm just throwing that out there. There are some instances where it would be nice to be able to tie a material to a specific work order. So we create work orders for stone and for large bought out items like display cases or a wall system or something. We create a work order and it's simply a pass through, but it tracks it and makes sure that it gets on the shipping ticket and whatnot. We do tie those to individual work orders, and those we would be able to receive to a work order. But there's no real easy way, even those, to see what work order is it assigned to. So the only way to do that would be to come into here, and you have to indicate it by the name of the work order, which is okay for us. When you start getting into a bigger company with more parts moving, I think it becomes a little bit foggy. So I'm going to go back out of here. That is my first receiving note. My second receiving note, and I saw it listed on there, is right now there's kind of a black hole when it comes to receiving damaged items or incorrect items and receiving credits for those as well. Especially when you go into input the invoices on a purchase order. The way that we work, right, and I think this is pretty standard, is we get invoiced for that item, and hey, we called them up and said, that top that was received was damaged and they're going to replace it. Well, they'll actually invoice us for that, and then they issue us a credit. Well, I can't input multiple invoices for the same item, and how do I credit it? As far as I can tell, the credit feature does not exist. So let me jump back here. If I had received this, let me find one that I received. Sorry, I should do a better job demonstrating. So I received this, but let's say I had this sheet was damaged. Well, I still got invoiced for it. So I go in and fill this out, but now I got a second shipment. Well, how do I track that second shipment? Sometimes it's not used the same PO number. Sometimes they put I can't remember what it's called, but an RFI or basically a replacement PO, which they have some weird number that they use in-house. And then also they're going to invoice me for it, and then they're going to provide a credit. Well, I can't fill this out when I've already got an invoice for it. And I definitely can't add a credit as far as I know. So there's an issue. There are things about, or I guess to think about, how does that input impact things down the line. So recently we've had multiple VT top damage tops come in. So which one gets assigned to the project? Which one gets utilized? Do I have two in inventory at this point when I theoretically paid for one? There's all sorts of, I guess, mud in the waters there. So I'm going to cross off my receiving at this point. I've gone over the materials to buy, and I've gone over the, oh, I did not go over this. So here's one. This would be helpful. I'm guessing this is a feature outside of accounting, but really would like to be able to create a material on the fly. When you're creating a purchase order and you're kind of moving through the system, and you go, I'm going to add some materials. Well, now I have to go and open a different screen and create the material and then refresh this and then try to add that to the work order. It happens when you're doing approval of materials on projects as well. So it's pretty common to come in here, I think, and go to materials and try to swap this out. Well, I can't swap it out because the material doesn't exist yet. But I don't find that out until I go in here and I do this. My workaround is basically the first thing that I do before I go and do this is I start with going to materials and seeing if the edge banding, the laminate, all that stuff exists. So creating items on the fly is kind of a side note. And then last but not least, I guess, would be, and I do think this is part of accounting, is the proposal and shipping. So first off, on a project, I don't know why the proposal, when you say it's awarded, doesn't become part of the project. So our workaround, and we started it Friday of last week when it was identified, is we're going to start printing the proposal to a PDF and then uploading it. But it really should just be, I mean, the information's there. I don't see why it wouldn't just carry over. The reason for that is it's pretty important when the project manager's checking things like scope, the engineer's looking against the scope to see what was bid. I don't necessarily want the engineers coming in here and messing around in the takeoff. So I think it's a lot more than they need to deal with. So right now they're going into sheets, they're generating it, but they're generating locations, but obviously it's not interactive and they don't get any information as far as what product was actually bid. So for instance, if I look at this, I don't know what that item is right there. You know, is that a undercounter bracket or is that a wall hung ADA sink base? Now, our rule is a triangle is used for brackets, but we've had a couple issues recently where the engineer made a mistake and we presented wall hung sink bases when we bid brackets. So having the proposal come over, the main reason that I would tie it to accounting is and I think most people would use the proposal to create the SOV. I can't see the proposal here, so when I'm creating my SOV, I really feel like it should be part of this project. And then the last part of it, and maybe this isn't tied to accounting, but we invoice based off shipments. Sometimes we invoice when we have completed and stored items, but 90% of the time we invoice based off shipments. Our project managers are now responsible for creating shipping tickets. If I go out to the shop and I say, hey, ship work order 2, 3, and 4, they'll just grab everything that is 2, 3, and 4. They may not know exactly what items are part of 2, 3, and 4, and there's nothing that says that on the shipping ticket that this hasn't shipped yet. There's nothing that flags it as back ordered. I imagine someday down the line when you guys have scanning and everything tied in perfectly, then that'll become part of the, I guess, process. But right now, as a double check, our project managers create shipping tickets. The only place you're able to create a shipping ticket, as far as I can tell, is in the kiosk, and our project managers don't function within the kiosk. Their role is to function within the web interface. So that's about it. If some of these aren't part of the accounting features, again, I apologize, but that lays it out. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Thanks.